Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajakacharya Ashtotara Shata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananda Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Prem Se Kuho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Braj Bihari Gopi Gopinath Shamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Ki Jai Mayapur Navadvipan Ki Jai Ganga Devi Bhakti Devi Jamuna Devi Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai. All glories unto the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories unto their merciful lordship Shri Shri Guru Shri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're reading from Bhagavad-gita As It Is, Chapter 2, Contents of the Gita Summarized. We're at text number 66. Nasti buddhir ayuktasya na chayuktasya bhavana na cha bhavayata shantir ashantasya kuta sukam. Nasti buddhir ayuktasya na chayuktasya bhavana na cha bhavayata shantir Ashantasya kuta sukam. Word for word. Na asti, there cannot be. Buddhi, transcendental intelligence. Ayuktasya, of one who is not connected with Krishna consciousness. Na, neither. Cha, and. Ayuktasya, of one devoid of Krishna consciousness. Bhavana, mind fixed in happiness. Na, neither. Cha, and. Abhavayata, one who is not fixed. Shanti, peace. Ashantasya, of the unpeaceful. Kuta, where is. Sukam, happiness. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. One who is not in transcendental consciousness can have neither a controlled mind nor steady intelligence, without which there is no possibility of peace. And how can there be any happiness without peace? Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Unless one is in Krishna consciousness, there is no possibility of peace. So it is confirmed in the 5th chapter, verse 529, that when one understands that Krishna is the only enjoyer of all the good results of sacrifice and penance, and that he is the proprietor of all universal manifestations, that he is the real friend of all living entities, then only can one have real peace. Therefore, if one is not in Krishna consciousness, there cannot be a final goal for the mind. Disturbance is due to want of an ultimate goal. And when one is certain that Krishna is the enjoyer, he is the proprietor and friend of everyone and everything, then one can, with a steady mind, bring about peace. Therefore, one who is engaged without a relationship in Krishna consciousness, one who is engaged without a relationship with Krishna is certainly always in distress and is without peace. However much one may make a show of peace and spiritual advancement in life, Krishna consciousness is a self-manifested peaceful condition which can be achieved only in relationship with Krishna. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanagana Shalakaya Chaksur Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So this is the first one of the Shanti verse. I call them the Shanti verses because there's 2 verses in this chapter which are talking about peace. And then Prabhupada is mentioning in the 5th, we're going to look at the verse that's in the 5th chapter, that because that is the biggie. That's the one that Prabhupada calls the peace formula. So we're gonna talk about that one also. First, I just want to say, yeah, everybody wants peace, but really, if you examine it, has there ever been a time on planet Earth when there was total peace on the planet? I don't think so, because there's always something happening. People are either fighting in their own homes, or they're fighting on the same continent or the same country or 2 countries. Somebody's fighting all the time. And as a matter of fact, according to the Vedic literature, as long as people are killing animals and having abortions, killing children, slaughtering the animals, slaughtering babies like that, as long as that happens, then they will have to have the reaction of being killed in a war like that. That's why there are wars, because people have so many reactions coming to them due to their bad karma, due to their sinful activities. So how can we have any peace? How can there, and if there's no peace, how can we be happy? We can't. You have to have peace to be happy. So I'm just going to look at a little bit of this chapter, what the history of the last 3 shlokas, what we've been talking about, and how they tie in with this shloka. So we started out here. This verse today is 266. We started out in 261. The Jayato Vishayam Pumsak. It goes through the Sangaste Shupajayate. It goes through the whole process that one who can control his senses. It says one who restrains his senses, keeps them under full control, and who fixes his consciousness upon Krishna, he is known as a man of steady intelligence. Great. But then it goes on and it explains the opposite person who does the opposite thing, who's not trying to be Krishna conscious, one who is controlled by the senses. So that shloka is, while contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them. And from this attachment, lust develops. And from lust, anger arises. That's the Jayato verse, sorry. Vishayan Pumsat. And it says, Kama Krodo Vijayate. So from lust, anger arises. And then the next verse, so actually, Prabhupada said, he said this on a tape once, but he also wrote it in a purport in the 3rd canto of Bhagavatam, that when lust is, when we don't achieve what we want, when our lust is frustrated, what happens? His little brother comes along. And you know, if any of you have had a little brother, or if you have kids, 2 boys, or if you've seen somebody else that has 2 kids, you know that the little brother is always trying to copy the big brother. And he always wants to do whatever the big brother does. And he always wants to hang around with the big brother and the big brother's friends. Sometimes they don't want him, sometimes they may allow him to, but that's the little brother. But lust has a little brother, Prabhupada told us. Who is that little brother of lust? The little brother of lust is not such a sweet little thing. It is Krodha. Krodha, Bhavati Samohat. Samohat Smriti Vibramat. Smriti Brahmshad Buddhinasho Buddhinashat Pranashati. So from anger, from Krodha, complete delusion arises when we get angry. From delusion, bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, the intelligence is lost. And when the intelligence is lost, we fall down again into the material pool. What does that mean, the material pool? Well, I hate to tell you all, but the material pool is not just some nice swimming pool at a resort or in your backyard that you can jump into nice cool water when it's super hot outside. That's not the material pool, okay? The material pool is more like a cesspool. Cesspool means contaminated water, you know? So we fall into the material pool from Krodha, the younger brother of lust. Unfulfilled desires. The younger brother is Krodha. But then after that, the shlokas go, but a person free from all attachment and aversion, who is able to control his senses through regulative principles of freedom, can obtain the complete mercy of the Lord. That's the alternative. You know, either we're going to be absorbed in the modes of material nature, and that means that the modes are going to dictate what happens to us at every stage, or the other side of the spectrum is to be Krishna conscious. And when we become fully Krishna conscious, then we're no longer under the control of the modes of material nature, but actually because the modes are external potency of God. We want to be controlled by the internal potency. The external energy of God is inferior, and the Parashakti, or the internal potency, is the superior energy of Krishna. So the opposite of being controlled by the modes, the inferior Aparashakti, is to be lying on the lap of Krishna. Prabhupada explained it as. What he means by that is that we're absorbed in the internal potency, the Parashakti, the supreme energy of God, and Govinda is directing our dealings. He's telling us what to do. He's dealing with us instead of the modes completely controlling us. What a difference, It's all the difference in the universe. And the choice is ours, So it says in the Bhagavad-gita, for one thus satisfied in Krishna consciousness, the threefold miseries of material existence exist no longer. In such satisfied consciousness, one's intelligence is soon well established. Okay, great. So then, what did Prabhupada mean in this shloka when Prabhupada said, well, Prabhupada said, unless one is in Krishna consciousness, there's no possibility of peace. So it is confirmed in the 5th chapter, 529. Okay, when we look to the chapter 5, verse 29, what verse is it? It's Bhoktaram Yagya Tapasam Sarva Loka Maheshwaram Suhridam Sarva Bhutanam Gyatgamam Shantim Richchati. It's that a person who is in full consciousness of Krishna, knowing him to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, he's the supreme lord of all the planets and demigods and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities. This person only can attain peace from the pangs of material miseries. So in the purport of that shloka, Prabhupada says, the conditioned souls within the clutches of the illusory energy are all anxious to attain peace in the material world. But they do not know the formula for peace, which is explained in this part of the Bhagavad Gita. The greatest peace formula is simply this: Lord Krishna is a beneficiary in all human activities. Men should offer everything to the transcendental service of the Lord because he is the proprietor of all the planets and the demigods thereon. So basically, Prabhupada goes on in this purport, there's three things. The peace formula is three things. And if people know this and understand it within their hearts, then they will actually be eligible to have real peace, because this is the real peace formula. The first thing, Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. Bhoktaram yagya tapasam. All the yagya, all austerities are done, and sacrifices are done for his pleasure. So he's the supreme enjoyer. Okay, that's number one. Number two, Sarva Loka Maheshwaram. Sarva Loka, everybody on the planet. He's Maheshwaram. He's Mahesh. Maha Ishvara. He's the supreme controller. That's number two. Krishna is the supreme controller. And Suhridam Sarvabhutanam. He is the dearmost friend within the heart of every living entity. He's our dearmost loving friend. That's number three. So if we understand these three things, then we're eligible to actually attain peace. And we see from today's shloka, you can't be happy unless you have peace. So we want to be happy. Everybody wants to be happy. That's our nature. What does our nature mean? It means that our real eternal identity of our soul is Sat Chidananda Vigraha. Sat, full of knowledge, Chit, the consciousness, and Ananda, bliss, happiness. That's what we, that's our eternal identity, but it's covered over now by the material body, material mind, senses, and we can be happy if we become Krishna conscious and understand this peace formula. So just as today's shloka is talking about peace, and it says ashantasha means unpeaceful, and of course shanti means peace. So there in a couple shlokas, there's another peace shloka, which it's a very beautiful one. It goes, you can hear in the last line, Shanti is there. It goes, Apuryamanam achala pratishtam samudramata pravashanti yadvat tadvat kamayam pravashanti sarve sashantim atnoti nakamakami. And it means that a person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled, but is always still, can alone achieve peace, and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. So what does it mean? It means that we're always going to have a million desires coming in, I mean, all you got to do is, look at the computer for 5 minutes and you see, ads pop up, buy this, do that, drink this, eat that, get this car. All these desires are there. They're going to come in. They're going to keep coming in. But just like the rivers are always flowing into the ocean, they never stop. It's not like a river stops for 2 hours and then starts up again. They flow incessantly. So they're flowing in, but the ocean doesn't overflow its brinks because the rivers are keeping to flow in. No, it's always still even. I mean, well, that means it doesn't overflow. That's what I guess that means. So a person who is not disturbed by all these desires flowing in every second from everywhere, externally and some internally, this person alone can achieve peace, and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. So I also wanted to mention at the end of this purport, Srila Prabhupada is mentioning the last sentence is, therefore, one who is engaged without a relationship with Krishna is certainly always in distress and is without peace. However much one may make a show of peace and spiritual advancement in life. Sorry, that was the second to last line. So the last line, Krishna consciousness is a self-manifested, peaceful condition which can be achieved only in relationship with Krishna. What does that mean exactly, that it's self-manifested? So Prabhupada's saying Krishna consciousness is a self-manifested peaceful condition which can be achieved only in relationship with Krishna. He means here that everybody may want peace, because if everybody really examines it, how can there be any happiness without peace, as this shloka says? So everybody understands, and they should. A lot of times demons don't understand. They like to cause trouble. But basically, the devotees at least always understand that we need peace, So Prabhupada is saying Krishna consciousness is a self-manifested peaceful condition that's only achieved when you have your relationship with Krishna. I'll give an example. About 10 years ago, roughly, maybe 12, one of my godbrothers was telling me, geez, some of our youth here were shown, they were kind of shown on YouTube, and they were swim. We have here in the Alachua area, we have a lot of natural springs. So they call them first magnitude and second magnitude springs. They're very, on the whole planet, this is one of the best places for natural springs. Okay. And the devotees go like tubing, they float on an inner tube down the Ichatakni River. That's one of the springs. Or they go swimming in the other springs. And so some of the devotees, so that many years ago, 12 years ago, the youth were caught on camera doing skinny dipping. Skinny dipping means they were swimming naked in the river, in the springs, And there were some guys there and there were some girls too, so I said, oh my God. I said, and this devotee has a son that was doing it. I said, wow, what did your wife say? And he said, I didn't tell her because I didn't want her to be upset. He said, anyway, it's what happens, he said, kids will do stuff like that, stupid stuff. They don't think about the consequences. But really what happens is that when they get married and have kids, then that's a responsibility is self-manifested. So what he's trying to say, and is related to this, because Prabhupada said that Krishna consciousness is a self-manifested peaceful condition. So he meant by self-manifested, he means that as soon as these kids, because the natural flow of things, that in a few years they'll get married, they start to have their own kids. And when they have their own kids, then they have a lot of responsibility on their shoulders, and they have to take care of a family, and they become more mature. So the maturity will set in, and they won't do something silly like that again, because that was from the youth. So it's self-manifested. The sense of responsibility and maturity is self-manifested. So just by having a relationship with Krishna, then Krishna consciousness is a self-manifested peaceful condition that comes. It self-manifests by chanting Hare Krishna and by studying the qualities of Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami, studying his wonderful qualities. And then at that point, the peace will come. So I don't know if anybody has any questions on this part of the class, on this shloka. If you do, you may ask now, or I'm going to tell some stories about Prabhupada. One story is related to this shloka, because it's about somebody who an ashantasya person, which means unpeaceful. So what happened was, this is a true story. There was a young man in Miami, and he really disliked the devotees for years, he said. So one day, the devotees used to go on Harinam on Miami Beach a lot. So one day he dumped a bucket of water out his window onto the devotees as they were passing by with Harinam. If you can imagine, I'm in hellish, So then a little later, the same young man, he was going to school at Florida International University. And for a number of years, we had our Miami temple right across the street from that university. And I used to go there and give, they would ask me to give lectures. And this one professor in particular was one of the ones who had a lot of lectures that he invited us for. His name is Professor Daniel Alvarez. And he was in the Department of Religious Studies, and he taught world religions. So whenever he taught about Krishna or Hinduism, he would invite me and I would give a presentation, So, so this young man happened to take that world religion course. And then he asked the teacher, Dr. Alvarez, he said, well, I hated the Hare Krishnas for so many years. What can I do about it? Because then he was feeling guilty after he learned how Krishna consciousness is bona fide religion, and he had done something nasty, So the professor told him, well, spend some time with the devotees, getting to know them, and then you'll change your attitude. That negativity will leave you. So that's what that was the professor's, and he told me this later. So the boy, the young man, he went to the temple to make a film of the devotees. It happened to be that he went there on a Janmashtami. So he made a film of the celebration of Lord Krishna's birthday, and then he gave it to his professor to see later, to show him, see, this is what I've been doing. I followed your advice. And so that just shows that an Ashantasya person, when he comes into contact with Krishna, can achieve some type of inner peace. Okay, so if there are no questions right at this point, I'm going
to... Short question, like if I may, like, so when our nature, like Satchitananda Vigraha and Chit, kind of like sometimes translated like, so the soul is eternal and full of knowledge and bliss, and but we forget about it. So how is it like full of knowledge, and what does it mean, like practically? Like, do we have access to all knowledge if Krishna wants us to give, so we have potency to get whatever knowledge we need? Or yeah, so how to understand this, like cheat thing?
Chit potency. Yeah. Well, I mean, the topmost is Anandamaya Vyasat. We've got the Manomaya, we've got all the different levels there. But the top one is Anandamaya Vyasat. That's understanding Krishna in full. So we're devotees, and we're becoming purified. We're purifying our hearts, our consciousness through the Sankirtan process. And eventually, yes, we come to that platform, but we have to become a pure devotee before we can understand in full the Satchitananda Vigraha, of course. But yeah, I mean, that's the process of Krishna consciousness is meant for that. That should be our goal. Yes, certainly. Now, I don't know if I answered your question, but.
Yeah, at least you directed me to or to like what to study about, like this Anandamaya Vyasat.
Yeah, just keep reading the Srimad Bhagavatam and studying Prabhupada's books, and Krishna will reveal everything to us. We have to become trustworthy again. Why? Because we're in the 1/4 of the living entities who have decided to leave the spiritual world and come down to the material world. It's just like somebody can come up to you, your friend can come up to you and say, oh, wow, I saw this movie. It's the best movie. You have to go see it. It's just like the best thing I've seen in my life. So we fell for it. We were in the spiritual world and we came down to the material world. And then what happens, you go there to the movie and you say, wow, I don't even like this movie. I can't believe it. What did I come here for? So here we are, we were in the spiritual world, and only 25% of those that are ever came down here, and we're among those. So, in other words, we blew it, it's a cast of billions, full live technicolor, and we came here to the material world. So now we have to become reinstated in the loving trust of Lord Krishna by pleasing a pure devotee, our spiritual master, following his instructions, and he'll guide us and teach us how to become reinstated in that trust and become Krishna conscious, so that ultimately we can go back to the spiritual world where our eternal family is waiting for us. You know, they've been waiting for us. They're saying, you know, what's the matter already? Come back, you know. So they're waiting for us. So that's our goal. We have to have a big goal. And just like this purport was talking about goals. So, so therefore, if one is not in Krishna consciousness, there cannot be a final goal for the mind. Disturbance is due to want of an ultimate goal. Okay. Disturbance is due to want of an ultimate goal. So we have to have the big goal. You know, I mean, certainly in the material world, people have goals. I want to get my doctorate. I want to become a lawyer. I want to get married and have children. There's so many goals, you know. But once they get that, then what? Then they have to find another goal, you know. So the ultimate goal, disturbance is due to want of an ultimate goal. The ultimate goal, we'd like to go back to Goloka Vrindavan and serve our spiritual master and serve Sri Govinda there in the spiritual world. That's our ultimate goal in Krishna consciousness. We'd like to become Krishna conscious. So Prabhupada says disturbance is due to want of an ultimate goal. When one is certain that Krishna is the enjoyer, proprietor, and friend of everyone and everything, then one can, with a steady mind, bring about peace. So this is the topic today, how to have peace, because after all, how can there be any happiness without peace? You know? So have an interesting, this is an interesting question. Somebody asked, how can ISKCON, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, be considered pure? Although some members have deviated from spiritual principles. I mean, that's a valid question, I think. Okay. Srila Prabhupada had answered this question when a young lady disciple asked him, why does Krishna, I don't understand why Krishna has an external energy. Why does Krishna have, in other words, why does Krishna have that inferior energy? So much negativity. You know, I don't get it. Why is that? So she asked that to Prabhupada directly. So Prabhupada answered her, because this was her thinking. Because Lord Krishna is pure, there shouldn't be any impurities emanating from him, such as the external energy, Maya, that binds the living entities to birth and death. So I don't get it, Prabhupada. Why is that? You know, why does that inferior potency emanate from Krishna? Okay, so it's almost the same. It's the same type of question when somebody asked how ISKCON can be considered pure, although some members deviate, okay, have deviated from spiritual principles along the way, okay? So this was Prabhupada's answer. Prabhupada said to this young girl, the lady disciple, suppose you are a very nice girl, he said, but because your body passes some urine or stool, does it mean that you are bad? In the same way, ISKCON remains pure, even though some impure elements may pass through and out of it. So Prabhupada designed ISKCON, and his sincere followers strive to perpetuate it. Perpetuating ISKCON's legacy of purity from within ISKCON, not from outside the movement, is an important part of expressing our gratitude and love for Srila Prabhupada. Let's see, there was a morning walk in Vrindavan, and His Holiness Lokanath Swami was there with Prabhupada, and he asked him, well, he told him, he made a statement. He said, Prabhupada, people object when we preach sometimes. They say, have you seen God or Krishna? If you haven't, how can you speak about him? Okay, it's a question. If anybody could ask that. If you haven't seen Krishna or God, then how can you speak about him with certainty, right? Okay, Prabhupada's answer. Your grandfather may have passed away before you were born, but you may inherit his money. You have not seen him, you rascal, Prabhupada said. So why are you so anxious to take his money? So Prabhupada said, you have to learn how to capture the rascals. Once somebody asked Prabhupada, why do we have so many temples if God is everywhere? Well, I mean, that's an unintelligent question. So Prabhupada answered, air is everywhere, but we still need a fan to feel it. Okay. One of Prabhupada's disciples was a university professor. His name was Hayagriva Das. He was Professor Wheeler, I think was his legal name, you know. So he had a lot of students, you know. So one time he spoke, Prabhupada was in the room, and Hayagriva Prabhu was in the room, and a lot of devotees, okay? So Hayagriva kind of made his big announcement in front of Prabhupada. And he said, maybe trying to impress Prabhupada or something. So he said, I'm going to renounce the world. This was his big announcement. And Prabhupada just kind of looked at him, you know, and he said, you do not own the world, so how can you renounce it? Everything belongs to Krishna, not us. Knowing that is renunciation. Understanding that is renunciation, that everything belongs to Krishna, not to us. You know? And later on, Prabhupada explained, you see, we do not renounce anything. Renouncing presupposes that you own it. But we don't own anything. Krishna owns everything. Just as Krishna steals butter, he steals the hearts of the devotees. He can do this because they're already his. He doesn't really steal them. They already belong to him. Our hearts, the butter, everything. He's the supreme proprietor, you know. So he's not stealing or cheating. We are stealing or cheating when we enjoy separately from Krishna. That's a good point to remember. This is nice. Once Prabhupada was Achyutananda, he was a sannyasi at that time. No, he's no longer a sannyasi, but he lives right here and in Alachua. He's a very nice devotee. So Achyutananda, he was one of the first devotees to go back to India with Prabhupada, you know. And I don't know if you all know, but he wrote that first Hare Krishna songbook, and he was very famous all over India as a bhajan singer. And this was, this was almost 50 years ago, so it was a long time ago. So before he ever went to India, like in about 1968 or something, Achyutananda asked Prabhupada, "Where do you live in India?" That's a good question. So Prabhupada answered him, "Vrindavan." And Achyutananda asked, "What is it like?" And Prabhupada said, "Oh, you can become more Krishna conscious in one day in Vrindavan than 10 years in America." That's what Prabhupada said. Here's a whole series. This is very sweet. This is explaining how the spiritual master is always with the sincere disciple and never leaves him. If one is following sincerely, the guru never leaves him. So this was a letter Srila Prabhupada wrote in 1973. Srila Prabhupada told one of his disciples, "Please always try to remember me by my teachings, and we shall always be together. Just like I have written the first publications of the Bhagavatam, the spiritual master lives forever by his divine instructions, and the disciple lives with him. Because I have always served my Guru Maharaj," Prabhupada said, "and followed his teachings, I am now even never separated from him." Very important to remember that. That's A. Then I have B here. In October 1975, Vishal Prabhu, who was my godbrother, he just passed away about a year ago. He was distributed books about every day for over 50 years. At least some books he would go out and distribute. So he had 3 daughters born. I think they were all born in Vrindavan. So the first daughter born in Vrindavan was actually, I think, she was one of the very first ISKCON children born in Vrindavan. And first daughter was born in Vrindavan. So he said to Prabhupada, Vishal, "I understand, Srila Prabhupada, from my godbrothers and godsisters, and I have read in your books that you may leave us sometime. Would you please name my daughter before you leave?" Because his daughter was just born, And Prabhupada's answer, Prabhupada said, "My spiritual master has never left me." That's Prabhupada. But later he named the baby. He named her Vrindavaneshwari. And then C, Jamuna Devi, my god sister, the same one that wrote the cookbooks. Jamuna asked Prabhupada, "Srila Prabhupada, how many times were you with your Guru Maharaj?" I mean, good question. And if we read again in Prabhupada's Lilamrita, we can see that he was really only with his Guru Maharaj. It seemed like a handful of times, not a lot, So Prabhupada's answer, "Since I met him, I have never been away from him, not even for 1 second." So that's the attitude. That means you're going to be Krishna conscious all the time, every moment, if we understand that our Guru Maharaj is with us at all times. Or if you all understand, maybe you're not initiated, then if you understand that your Param Guru, which means Prabhupada, your grandfather Guru, is with you at all times because you're following his instructions and reading his books. Okay, D. This was a letter Prabhupada wrote in 1967 from Vrindavan. "Never think that I am absent from you. Physical presence is not essential. Presence by message or hearing is real touch. Lord Krishna is present by his message, which was delivered 5,000 years ago. He's, of course, referring to the Bhagavad-gita. We feel always the presence of our past acharyas simply by their immutable instructions. And then the last one in this series, the best way to be with Srila Prabhupada is by service and separation. And Prabhupada's quote, "Let us meet by Sankirtan. I do not feel separation from my Guru Maharaj when I am engaged in his service. His pictures give me sufficient strength. To serve the spiritual master's word is more important than to serve him physically." I also wanted to mention some nice festival that we had here in Alachua County. Alachua County means, this is the county that Gainesville is in. Gainesville means University of Florida. We have 50,000 students there. It's one of the biggest universities in the United States. And and Alachua is about a 15-minute drive, 20 minutes from Gainesville, the town. So they're all in Alachua County. And Srila Prabhupada came here exactly 50 years ago. So we had the 50th anniversary of Srila Prabhupada here last month. So how was it that Prabhupada came here? There were students who were devotees at the University of Florida, and they were trying to get, one of them, Armarendra, was a man about campus. He knew everybody, and he was involved in the university politics and things like that. So but he was a devotee, so he wanted Prabhupada to come, and he knew the person that was in charge of giving stipends or giving money to people who wanted to come and give lectures there. So he said, look, you got to pay for a ticket for A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada to come here, because at that point, the Prabhupada secretary was saying something like, unless we get, it paid for, Prabhupada's not going to come to, because so many temples want him to come. But the first one that, pays for a ticket, he'll come. So this was 1971, 50 years ago. So finally, after he, the guy said, okay, we'll give you the money. So I think they gave $1,000, which was a lot of money at that time, 500 or 1,000, and it paid for Prabhupada to come. So Prabhupada came. And the first thing that Prabhupada said was, when he came, Prabhupada said, it is so nice to see you chanting Hare Krishna here in this far remote corner of the world, so far away from Lord Chaitanya's movement in Sridham Mayapur. So here we were. And Prabhupada came, and he spoke at the plate in the middle of the campus here. It's still called Plaza of the Americas. And this is the place where, ever since Prabhupada was here 50 years ago, we have been distributing, because he inspired the devotees to start a Food for Life type program. So they've had what's called Krishna Lunch ever since, for the 50 years. And they're already on they're past 3 million meals that they've passed out in that many years. What it is, they Monday through Friday during the school year, and then also in the summer, but during, Monday through Friday, the devotees go and present a full lunch, and everybody comes, students and faculty members, and they serve, I don't have the number in front of me now. He told me, Kalakanta's in charge now, but he told me, but they serve like on a daily basis, 500 to 1,000 meals, It's very systematic how they do it. They have a nice kitchen nearby, and so that's what they've been doing. So so Prabhupada was there, and he gave different lectures, and then at night he filmed a TV show, wanted him to come. So we went, and when he got back to the temple, it was almost midnight. And the devotees said to Prabhupada's servant at that time, well, Prabhu, you know, we were supposed to have a yagya. There's devotees that need to get initiated. And he said, well, I don't think so, because Prabhupada's leaving in the morning before Mangalarti, because we have to drive to Jacksonville to catch the next airplane. And so the devotees were, oh my gosh. And Prabhupada saved the day. He said, you know, we'll do it now, right now on the spot. So everybody went into Prabhupada's bedroom. He was seated on his bed, and Prabhupada initiated the devotees on the spot. He said, your name is Amarendra. Your name is Dharma. Your name is Gayatri Devi. He initiated everybody. And Gayatri was Amarendra's wife, and she's the one that actually invented the recipe for Goranga potatoes. If everybody likes Goranga, everybody loves Goranga potatoes. So she made the recipe. She said, I was looking for something I could make for a Kadashi that was different, you know, with potatoes. So she made up the recipe. And also during that festival last month, the 50th anniversary of Prabhupada coming to Gainesville, Florida, and Alachua County, was we had the opening of the Bhaktivedanta Institute, the scientific branch of Krishna consciousness here in Gainesville. And they have a very wonderful old mansion. It was actually the home of a former president of the University of Florida. It was his home. And so now it's the BI, and it's a really fantastic location and place right near campus, and it's a beautiful building. So Hridayananda Maharaj helped with that, and Brahmatirtha Prabhu is there, and they have a whole branch of the BI there. And I wanted to say that, oh yeah, when we had the ceremony at the university for the 50th anniversary, the mayor of Gainesville came to speak. And when he spoke, it was very heartwarming. He said that, well, since I was 13, I used to sneak out, me and my friends used to sneak out of school and come to the universities and sit and have Krishna lunch since he was 13 years old. He said, it made us feel very grown up and very cosmopolitan to have Krishna lunch with the Krishnas. So he was a big fan, and he taught for many years at the other school. There's a Santa Fe College is here in Gainesville. So he taught there for many years. He was a professor now, but he's also the mayor of Gainesville. And then the University of Florida president spoke also, and he has his undergrad degree in religion. So he's a religious person, and when both of these men spoke, it was very more than favorable, because they said that they, you know, things like we can't imagine life without the Hare Krishnas here in Gainesville, and that the Hare Krishna movement has enriched our life so much. They said really beautiful. In fact, one of my god sisters, from listening to what they said, they were so profuse in their praise that she started to cry, you know. So it was very nice program that we had. And the University of Florida president put a garland on Prabhupada, and it was a nice ceremony, because we had right outside there in the plaza, we had the Vyasasan with Prabhupada's Murti, and, you know, we set up and breakfast for everybody. It was a very nice program. So that was last month. We had the 50th anniversary. This year also, is the 50th anniversary of when Prabhupada met with Professor Kotovsky and in Russia, in Moscow. And when they went there, he went with Shamasundar, and the Russian government was very strict. They said, we don't want any visitors to interact with any of the Russian population, with any Russian citizens. You're not to interact with any of them. It means you're not to speak to them, try to meet them or anything. So somehow Shamasundar had met Anatoly. He had met a young Russian young man who was somewhat interested in Krishna consciousness. So he brought him back to meet Prabhupada. And it was kind of under the ruse of him being their interpreter, you know, otherwise it wouldn't have been allowed. So he met him, and somehow, I mean, being able to meet one person in Russia, Prabhupada really met, besides the professor, you know. He met one person, Anatoly, and Anatoly became his initiated disciple, Ananta Shanti Das. And Ananta Shanti started the whole movement in Russia. I mean, with Prabhupada and with Krishna's blessings. So imagine, and he was put in prison and in mental hospitals and so many things. Finally, he got out, and I got to meet him. I was living in Vrindavan, and I was living in India for 6.5 years, from 1989 to 1995. I was living in Vrindavan first, and then in Juhu, which is Bombay, now Mumbai. So I was living in those places. And Ananta Shanti was living for a while in Vrindavan. So that's when I met him. Unfortunately, he has since passed, but the fact that he was the catalyst to start all of the devotees from Russia, there's no question in anybody's mind about that. He was the one. And I mean, amazing. And now it seems like there's more devotees in Russia than we have in the West, even at this time, you know. So it's like he did an amazing service, you know. So it's the 50th anniversary of that also this year. It's the 50th anniversary of the Kumbh Mela Prabhupada went to in 1971. And at that Kumbh Mela, some of the devotees, one of my godbrothers told us this story, that some of the devotees were preaching to some of the, you know, there were holy people there, so many saintly people. So they would preach to them and tell them, you should come and meet our Guru Maharaj, you know, something like, then you'll make real spiritual advancement or something like that. So when Prabhupada heard about this, that they were doing that, Prabhupada, he spoke to them. He said, it's very nice that you have faith in me and faith in the process of Krishna consciousness. But I want you to know that the people, the reason that we came here to Kumbh Mela is not so that we can convert some. He said, there are people here who are, you don't know who these spiritual people are. Some of them can be thousands of years old. Prabhupada said that. And he said, and they can be very spiritually advanced. So, and then Prabhupada told my god sister, she was there also that year, and he said that he said some of these people are so advanced that they do things like they can go to the Sangam of the river, and they can go down in the Ganga, and they can come out in the Krishna river or the Godavari, you know. He said they can do this. Why? Because they have mystic potencies. So these people are, you know, very special souls. So, so it's the 50th anniversary of the Kumbh Mela. It's the 50th anniversary of the first time Prabhupada went to Australia this year. And they must be having some type of a festival there in honor of that. I'm sure that's a little bit later in the year. Prabhupada spent a lot of time in India, and he spent time in London also. So anybody have any questions or comments?
we have nice comment on YouTube, like Angelo, who is watching us, said that Hare Krishna, Jai Shri Prabhupada, that Alachua sent me many books and kept me sane when I was in jail. So it seems like the person, yes, devotees from Alachua were sending them books and when they were in jail. So
oh yeah, you mean in Russia?
no, it's just someone commented on YouTube right now.
Oh, okay.
They're watching us and said that, yeah, so that's.
Yeah, there's a devotee, a lady here has the ISKCON prison ministry. It's coming from Alachua, and she sends books to people in prisons. Is that what you mean?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, absolutely. A wonderful service, you know, wonderful service. One time, Srila Prabhupada told Nanda Kumar, my godbrother, Prabhupada said, the blue sky that we see whenever we look outside during the day, the blue sky is the reflection of Krishna's skin, his bodily complexion. Prabhupada said Krishna's skin from the Brahma Jyoti. Blue sky, it's a reflection of Krishna's bodily complexion from the Brahma Jyoti. And
if anyone has any questions, you can unmute yourself.
at the airport, a reporter asked Srila Prabhupada, if your movement is so important, why do you have so few followers? And Prabhupada said, you know, sometimes he'd answer that differently, like, well, if you want to buy a diamond, you know, it's a little rare. You don't just go to any store. You have to go to a special shop, you know, and not everybody has the money to buy diamonds. You know, he would answer it different ways. But to this day, he said, so why do you have so few followers? And so Prabhupada says, because we have 4 rules: no illicit sex, no intoxication, no gambling, and no meat eating. And the man said, oh, I see. So he thought about it, you know, said, oh, I get it. Yeah. Said, yeah, I guess so, because I couldn't do it myself. I'm sure the man thought. So yeah, I get it. And in Prabhupada's garden in Vrindavan, there was a bush with white flowers that looked like small gardenias, and they smelled wonderful. We have, it might have been like Japanese jasmine. We have a flower here that we call that. It looks like a little lotus or a little gardenia, white flower, very beautiful, exquisite smell, you know. So Prabhupada said, if you smell these beautiful flowers that smell like that, it regulates your life airs. That's what Prabhupada said. To smell something like a beautiful rose, it'll regulate your life airs. What does that mean? It means the kapha, pitta, vata, they become balanced. It regulates your life airs, you know, so that it's good for your health. In other words, if you smell these beautiful flowers, I mean, what to speak if they're offered to Krishna, then you're getting a maha, some prasadam, you know, and that really helps. And another very interesting thing that Prabhupada said is that dancing unlocks devotion. And he meant, of course, dancing for Krishna, you know, either dancing on Harinam or dancing in front of the deities or dancing while you're chanting. Dancing unlocks devotion. So it means maybe something like that means that maybe you don't feel like dancing that day, or you're on the mental platform or whatever. But if you start to dance, it's going to unlock devotion and you'll feel more bliss. That's what Prabhupada said. Dancing unlocks devotion. Another thing that Prabhupada said is that by nature, the living entities and the Lord are similar. Just like there's a gold mine, and then there's a small piece of gold, maybe a gold ring or something. It's not that the small piece of gold becomes iron just because it's small. It's still gold, you know, but it's not going to be the big gold mine either, but it's the same quality. So he's saying that similarly, it's not possible to understand Krishna while still in a contaminated state. But if you can take shelter of a person who has taken shelter of Krishna, and then when one is surcharged with electricity, if you touch him, you will also be electrified. Can we start, Bhakti Shasha, the kirtan right now?
Absolutely, yeah.
Chanting Hare Krishna, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare
Thank you very much, Nartaka Gopala Mataji, for the great kirtan and class today and enlightening some kirtan stories. And so I invite everyone to join me in expressing appreciation to Nartaka Gopala Mataji. So, Nartaka Gopala Mataji ki jai.
Jai, Haribol, Hare Krishna,
Hare
Haribol.
Glory to your service, glory to Prabhupada.